To you this 29th day of May 2018. Welcome to the broadcast. We're coming to you live from our studios right here at Kenyatta University, where we inform you about the latest developments. Now, on this day, the Director of Public Prosecution, Noordin Haji, made good his threat, where 20 out of the 54 individuals linked to the National Youth Service scandal that involved 9 billion Kenya shillings of taxpayers' money were arraigned at the Milimani Law Courts to answer to various charges that are linked to the scandal that shook this country. We'll definitely keep you updated on that, where they actually pleaded not guilty to the charges that they were stated to by the magistrate in that particular court. We'll definitely take a look at this and other developments that happened during the course of the day, as we always do. So let's get right into it and take a look at the stories taking center stage tonight. PS Omolo, NYS Director General in Dubai, among those arraigned in court, deny NYS fraud charges. Whistleblowing role of the opposition at jeopardy. We question their silence in the wake of corruption scandals. Well, President Kenyatta chairs special cabinet meeting. Former Machakos gubernatorial candidate in court to answer rape charges. Welcome to the broadcast. My name is Jesse Rogers. Moses Gitonga is our sign language interpreter. Now, the Public Service, Youth and Gender Affairs Principal Secretary Lillian Omolo and National Youth Service Director General Richard Dubai are among the 20 individuals charged in court today with embezzlement of public funds in the NYS organization.
The NYS funds embezzlement saga took a different turn today after more than 20 individuals were dragged to the Milimani Law Court to answer to different accounts surrounding the loss of 457 million shillings of the 8 billion shillings in the organization. Both the Public Service, Youth and Gender Affairs Principal Secretary Lillian Omolo and NYS Director General Richard Dubai, when they appeared before Chief Magistrate Douglas Ogoti, led the throng of suspects in taking a not guilty plea in which they had been accused of making payments amounting to 28.7 million shillings to Ameri Trade Limited. The Kenya Institute of Supplies Management KISM has faulted the unfolding NYS saga, claiming that procurement officers are being used as scapegoats despite having resolved to blacklist all of the officers who will be convicted in this case. The Director of Public Prosecution, Noordin Haji, had earlier made it clear that his office has enough evidence to press charges on the suspects and that his team of professionals will ensure that justice is served. Other 34 suspects who went missing since yesterday have also been charged in absentia. The total number of suspects is 54. Brian Itava.
Well, we'll definitely keep you updated following that report by Brian Itava. Obviously, a lot happened at the Milimani Law Courts, and that is basically not it, as only 20 of the 54 suspects were actually arraigned in court. Let's move on. Kenya has proved to be a perfect looting zone for greedy and well-connected senior officials, given the increasing cases of graft being reported in the country. The opposition has been silent on the recent graft cases, which raises queries on who really should stand against the cases of corruption which threatens economic growth. Irene Mwangi focused on the failure of anti-graft agencies.
The public funds looting that has been unveiled lately is said to be masterminded by senior government officials who are termed as untouchable. Almost daily, taxpayers wake up to the news of the latest looting by people believed to be close to power. From the NYS Season 2 amounting to 9 billion shillings to NCPB saga where more than 1.9 billion was lost. After the handshake that is meant for the goodwill of the nation, the question among many was whether we have an opposition in the country. The deafening silence from the chief opposition leader Raila Odinga on the current scams has just raised more questions than answers.
It may have been exciting for us as nationals to hear Raila Odinga come out and bash the government. But the question is, did it really work for us? It didn't. And perhaps the actual solution would be that for Raila Odinga to hold the process to account. Have they gone to court? Are the cases going on correctly? More than what was the tradition of him coming out to just make a lot of noise.
A sample of Kenyans now see the war against corruption as a witch hunt, given the truce between NASA leader Raila Odinga and President Uhuru Kenyatta.
Sasa naweza sema ya kwamba hawafanyi vile inastahili, maana tuliona kabla ya uchaguzi wa 2017 ya kwamba upinzani ukiongozwa na mheshimiwa Raila Odinga walikuwa wanafanya kazi ya maana, lakini tangu uungane na serikali Raila amenyamaza, atomsikia, tujui kwamba anawasa nini.
NASA co-principals Moses Wetangula, Musalia Mudavadi and Kalonzo Musyoka, who were left out in the famous handshake, have not shown enough unity to be a bona fide opposition. Parliament, the people's watchdog, has a history of producing little to no results when it comes to grilling suspects. In 2013, the National Assembly Public Accounts Committee, led by former Arieda MP Nicholas Gumbo, did little in its oversight role during NYS Season 1. All eyes now locked to his successor, Guja MP Opiyo Wandayi, with concerns being raised on whether they will play their role to cure the cancer of corruption.
I also blame the Parliamentary Accounts Committee because they just call meetings, but they do not tell Kenyans their way forward or what they think, or rather their verdict. So I also blame them on their presentations because they're not taking the right action.
The reality is that parliamentary committees are supposed to get to the bottom of the story. They cannot sentence someone to jail. They cannot do much except now begin to legislate around such matters and recommend for the firing or the cancellation of contracts and things like that. Now, that is what parliamentary committees do. They will deliver their report to the Speaker, to the President, and things like that. That is what will happen. And they cannot do much beyond that.
From the 1990s, Kenya have witnessed the Goldenberg scam, the Anglo leasing, Afi House scandal, and Eurobond saga, which amount to close to $1 trillion, that shows our economic growth is in jeopardy. The fiscal deficit stands at 9% of the total gross domestic product. The wailing cry is that the current citizens and those who are unborn will carry the burden of this looting spree.
Our rate of corruption is so high, but we jail so few people, which then increases impunity. But on the other hand, we need to look at Kenyan culture.
Director of Criminal Investigation George Kinoti and the Director of Public Prosecution Nurdin Haji have shown their zeal to deal with corruption scandals. But most of these graft cases, once they get to court, lack of evidence is the narrative, and somehow the suspects are left out of the hook.
In fact, if these cases can be handled in the shortest time possible, and we see people actually paying for these crimes in the shortest time possible, then it will inspire hope in Kenyans. If it takes too long and it goes the route of Season 1, then we might depress the nation.
Each day, Kenyans are waking up to the rot that is in the country due to the big corruption scandals that are being reported. The question is, what's next for the taxpayers, given that the government is doing little to salvage the situation and the opposition is said to be working in cahoots with the government? Irene Mwangi, KUTV, Nairobi.
Well, thank you, Irene Mwangi, for informing us about the latest developments in terms of the opposition's duty as a whistleblower. We'll definitely keep the conversation going. In case you have your views and you'd like them to be aired right here on KUTV News at 8, you can definitely join us on our official Twitter page at KUTV Kenya using the hashtag KUTV News at 8, where we take a look at perhaps the role of these institutions, not forgetting the banks, in terms of the looting that is currently going on in Kenya. Perhaps you can take a look later on at what Kenyans are saying on social media under the hashtag money laundering, just to highlight the adversity and the rhetoric that is being spread on social media in terms of whatever's happened where money has been stolen. We'll definitely take a look at that. But still on the same note, Bungoma Governor Wycliffe Wangamati has called on President Uhuru Kenyatta to crack the whip on all those who will be found culpable of engaging in corruption at the NYS. The governor, who was speaking during a public participation exercise in Bumula Sub-County, Bungoma County, also appealed to the Ministry of Water, Environment and Natural Resources to compensate residents who were displaced following the construction of a dam in the area. The Cabinet Secretary for Environment, Water and Natural Resources, Simon Chelugui, was also in attendance.
Waitabaka. Si kawaida, but ni mpango.
When we see corruption happen kwa national government, kama juzi ya NYS ya National Serious Board, we must condemn it. Kwa sababu sisi kama governors, mheshimiwa Ojamongu yuko hapa, hatujapata pesa za miezi 3 kutoka kwa national government. Sisi hiyo maneno ya corruption tunaambia His Excellency the President and Deputy President, as they say, let them walk the talk of ensuring those people in wamekula pesa.
Well, still on the same note, following the move by the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution under the leadership of Nurdin Haji to commence prosecution of 20 individuals behind the loss of 457 million of the 9 billion shillings lost in the NYS Scandal, focus shifts on the judiciary and whether the cases will hold water this time round. We expound.
The ongoing scandals in the country has seen many questions linger in the minds of so many Kenyans, as many continue to ask what happened to our justice system. Despite the existence of the rule of law, scandals continue to be the order of the day. The Maraga-led judiciary has since failed to prosecute the culprits because of lack of enough evidence or bribing of the judges. This has been the food chains of malicious politicians who, looting public money, is their second name. But has the judiciary done enough? The second arm of government, which is expected to condemn the inhumane act, is now receiving sharp criticism from the taxpayers.
When the matters come to court, it's like a stage managed thing. We have heard them say that they are going to do some conviction or prosecution, but nothing has come forth. But we see small fish, small people. When they do a small thing like the incident that was in Kibera, a lady got a bribe of 2,500 and she was jailed for 15 years. Well, with the big money, the scandals from the maize, from the NYS, the previous one last year, nothing has happened.
So I think we should start just right from the office of the DPP. We should ensure that they collect the right evidence. Then the Directorate of Criminal Investigation as well. So those two departments have failed. So when we go to our courts, the courts may not be in a position to convict these criminals because there's not enough evidence.
Bribery inside the judicial system has seen the cartels who are looting public money walk scot-free, while a Kenyan who received a bribe of 2,500 shillings will serve 15 years in prison. The irony behind the scandals is that the same people who say they will protect the law seem to be the same ones preaching water while taking wine. Tribal politics seems to be controlling the business in the country as many politicians get richer and richer while the taxpayer toil and moil to find his daily bread. When and how this will stop still remains a mystery. Christine Kamau for KUTV.
Well, proper questions raised there by Christine Kamau, which actually is the same questions, or rather are the same questions that Kenyans are asking on social media, well, especially following the move by the DPP's office to open prosecution on the 20 who are arraigned at the Milimani Law Courts today. I can see one Kenyan actually asking where and why haven't we seen any banks being targeted since money was laundered through these institutions? Well, we'll definitely take a look at other reviews by Kenyans using the hashtag money laundering. You can also join on that. Let's move on. Now, President Uhuru Kenyatta today chaired a special cabinet meeting which saw several cabinet papers passed, including the National Disaster Risk Management Policy, which aims at research in disaster and risk reduction strategies, the National Drought Emergencies Fund, which purposes to improve the effectiveness and efficiency of drought risk management systems in the country, as well as to provide a common basket of emergency funds for drought risk management. Following the recommendation by National Treasury, the waiver on non-performing loans has been approved. Moreover, the Cabinet approved a multi-agency mapping approach which will provide a secure, up-to-date geospatial data for planning and development. Well, now, opposition leader Raila Odinga today paid a courtesy call to business mogul Chris Kirubi. The two discussed matters regarding Kenya's unity, where Raila was keen to highlight his legacy would be that of uniting Kenyans and encouraging true patriotism, thus fostering brotherhood among citizens. The meeting took place in Chris Kirubi's home in Nairobi, where Raila was accompanied by his legal advisor Paul Mwangi. Raila said that upon completion of this goal, he would have achieved his purpose. Chris Kirubi commended the leader on boosting the business atmosphere in the country following the handshake between him and President Uhuru Kenyatta.
May I ask you, what is your legacy? What would you like to be your legacy?
We want to leave a legacy of one united Kenya.
Oh, that's a great legacy.
This is my legacy. If I can make the contribution within the next coming few years,
yes,
to create conditions for uniting this country,
yes,
so that people will not feel strangers in their own country.
Right.
Their name will not be a curse, but a blessing.
Yes.
That every Kenyan will be free to move around the country and be able to realize their potential.
Yes.
I will feel that I would have lived a useful life in our country, and I will be happy to retire peacefully and go home and help in preparing my shamba.
We have to bring Kenyans together, and I think that is bigger than anything else you can give to Kenya. The media should understand it, and they should bring it very clearly that your legacy is Kenya.